Welcome to the deep dive. We've been digging through, well, quite a stack of sources looking at the recent 2025 elections, specifically those really key gubernatorial races, judicial results, redistricting measures, trying to map out what they signal for the future of reproductive rights in the U.S. We all remember that political earthquake when Roe v. Wade was overturned. It definitely supercharged a lot of races right away. But here's what we want to figure out today. Looking at these 2025 results, can we tell if that energy, that focus on reproductive freedom has maybe faded a bit, or have candidates just figured out a smarter way to win with it? What do these specific wins tell you about the issue's power now?
It's a really important question right now. I mean, for the past few years, you could argue abortion rights have been the most critical single issue driving election outcomes. And what the sources seem to show pretty clearly is that those commanding victories Democrats pulled off in 2025, governors, judges, even legislatures, they've absolutely breathed new life, maybe a more tactical life, into the fight for access.
Okay, so let's try and unpack this, because the political landscape, it just keeps shifting, doesn't it? We know that initial surge right after the Supreme Court decision was huge. I mean, 2022 midterms, Democrats did much better than expected, largely chalked up to outrage over Roe.
Right, and you even had voters in really red states passing ballot measures to protect access. It felt like a dominant force. But then, doubt started creeping in. You had Kamala Harris in 2024. Her campaign focused heavily on abortion rights, but didn't win the presidency. And some recent polling was suggesting maybe protecting access wasn't quite as top of mind for voters compared to, say, late 2023 or early 2024.
Yeah.
So the question became, was the issue losing its punch?
And that's exactly where these 25 state results become so relevant nationally. These weren't just, isolated state contests. They feel more like preemptive moves. Take California's Prop 50. That was a redistricting measure, huge Democratic support.
Right. And because it passed so overwhelmingly, it basically gives Democrats the green light to redraw district lines. The thinking is this could net them, maybe 2 or 3 extra U.S. House seats in 2026.
And the stakes for that are pretty obvious. If Republicans manage to strengthen their hold on the House, maybe the Senate too, next year, they might just get the votes they need for a national abortion ban. Or, keep extending things like the legislation that's already hit funding for groups like Planned Parenthood. So these state wins act like insurance policies.
Exactly right. The battles are local, state level, but the fallout, that's federal, purely federal.
Okay, so if the national picture can change so dramatically based on what happens state by state, let's zero in on those crucial state-level firewalls. The specific wins that are acting as defensive shields right now. These weren't just about winning an office. They were about shoring up access.
Yeah, let's run through the key ones that provide that protective layer. First off, New Jersey, Mikie Sherrill winning the governorship there. That cements abortion rights in a state that's already become a key haven for people needing care. That was a big hold for Democrats.
Yeah, one down.
Then you look at Pennsylvania, which is, it's such a critical legal battleground in that whole mid-Atlantic region.
Yeah.
Voters there kept 3 liberal Supreme Court justices on the bench. That maintains Democratic control, which is arguably the most important lever there.
Why specifically the court being so key there?
Well, because if the state legislature, which can be quite conservative, tries to pass a really restrictive new ban down the line, that court is the final backstop. It's the check. These judicial retention elections, they often fly under the radar, but they have immense long-term power.
Right. Less splashy than a governor's race, but potentially more enduring impact.
Exactly. And then number 3, Virginia. Abigail Spanberger winning the governorship there achieves that same kind of fortifying effect, flipping the governor's mansion.
So you've got New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Virginia. It does create this sort of protective corridor, doesn't it, in a region that's always politically contested.
A strong blue wall, at least on this issue, in key states.
But Virginia. That race seems like the most interesting case study here, almost a contradiction we need to explore. That contest between Spanberger and the Republican, winsome Earl Sears, it feels like it gives us the clearest look into how voters are actually thinking about abortion now.
Oh, the rhetoric was.
Right.
Well, it was intense. Earl Sears, who was the sitting lieutenant governor, she really leaned into fear-mongering tactics. She flat out accused Spanberger of backing abortion up until the very minute. She even used this really graphic, specific claim saying, you would have a baby aborted on the table.
And that kind of language, it sounds familiar, right? It echoes some of the claims Donald Trump has made for years about Democrats, claims that are just not based in reality.
Completely baseless.
So when you hear that kind of really charged rhetoric designed to hit emotions, not facts, we have to ground it. What do the sources say about the reality here?
Absolutely crucial to fact check. The reality is only about 1%, maybe slightly more, of abortions happen at or after 21 weeks. And those are almost always complex, often tragic medical situations. And the idea of abortion after birth, that just doesn't happen. It's illegal everywhere. It's infanticide. Full stop.
Right.
What seems clear from the Virginia result is that maybe voters, after hearing these extreme claims for years, are becoming a bit inoculated.
Right.
That hyperbole just seemed to bounce off.
Okay, so the extreme rhetoric didn't work. What did Spanberger do? What was her strategy?
Well, her main campaign message, the one she really hammered home, was affordability, hitting those core economic anxieties Virginians are feeling.
So standard kitchen table politics.
Pretty much. But, and this is key, abortion wasn't ignored. Not at all. Her campaign spent, $11 million on TV ads overall? About $1.1 million of that, so a decent chunk, went specifically into ads in the closing weeks. And those ads, they directly highlighted Earl Sears' personal views against abortion rights.
Wait, hang on. Only $1.1 million out of $11 million. That's like 10%. Doesn't that kind of suggest abortion was more of an attack line? A way to define Earl Sears negatively, maybe suppress her vote, rather than being the main thing motivating Spanberger's own supporters.
I think that's exactly the tactical shift this race shows us. The affordability message was the positive vision, the Big Tent pitch. The abortion spending was the sharp, targeted, negative contrast to motivate her base and maybe peel off some independents uncomfortable with Earl Sears' stance.
Okay.
And you also can't forget the outside groups. Advocacy organizations, like the ACLU, for instance, they poured money in too. About $1.8 million just in Virginia, mostly on voter education. And their campaigns focused heavily, almost predominantly, on where the candidates stood on abortion access.
Ah, okay. So the candidate leads with economics, the outside groups hammer the abortion message to the base and swing voters.
Seems like that was the playbook.
And the result speaks for itself, I guess.
Yep.
Earl Sears' really extreme rhetoric clearly failed. Spanberger wins with 57%. That's pretty decisive.
Very decisive. It strongly suggests that when one side relies only on that kind of hyperbole, voters might just tune it out and go with the candidate talking about their wallets.
So what happens now in Virginia with that decisive win? What are the immediate consequences?
Well, they're huge for the state. For the first time since Roe was overturned, Democrats control the whole government there. The House of Delegates, the state Senate, and the governor's mansion. A trifecta.
Wow, okay.
And that complete control immediately opens the door for something big, potentially passing a constitutional amendment to explicitly protect abortion rights in the Virginia Constitution.
That sounds like a major step, but that's not something they can just do overnight, is it?
No, it's a process. In Virginia, an amendment like that has to pass the legislature twice in 2 separate sessions with an election in between before it can even go on the ballot for voters to approve.
Ah, okay. So it's a multi-year effort.
Exactly. Which likely means if Virginia Democrats go down this path, abortion politics are going to dominate the state again in next year's legislative elections too. The fight just moves up a level, trying to lock in that protection long term, basically cementing Virginia as a safe haven.
Right, and this all feeds back into that broader narrative. We saw Mikie Timuraju, she's the president of Reproductive Freedom for All. She pointed to the Virginia sweep and said, quote, "This sweep proves what we have seen again and again. When candidates run on expanding and protecting abortion access, they win."
A common refrain from advocacy groups.
Listening to our breakdown, are the advocacy groups maybe slightly oversimplifying here? Timuraju says they ran on expanding access, but Spanberger, the candidate herself, ran mainly on affordability, using abortion more like that attack tool we discussed. It feels like the real takeaway isn't just run on abortion and win. It's more nuanced, right? It seems like in these tight, targeted races, running clearly on protecting access is still incredibly potent, especially when you pair it skillfully with those bread-and-butter economic messages.
I think the subtlety is absolutely crucial. That's what these 2025 results really underline. Reproductive freedom isn't just a base motivator anymore, though it's still that. It's also become this really powerful tool for defining your opponent, for drawing a sharp contrast. The key seems to be that the winning candidates, like Spanberger, they built this broad coalition around the economic concerns first, knowing that the abortion messaging would then solidify that highly motivated part of the electorate they needed to turn out.
That feels like the real evolution here. The strategies shifted from just outrage equals turnout to something more like use the opponent's stance on abortion to define them negatively while you focus on broader issues to build your majority.
Precisely. Which leaves us with a really interesting question for you, the listener, to think about moving forward. We saw in Virginia that the really extreme, baseless rhetoric on abortion failed pretty spectacularly. But Spanberger still won using that mixed messaging approach. So what does that tell us about the right recipe for candidates in other purple states looking ahead to 2026? Does the abortion rights issue now need to be coupled with those core economic worries, like affordability or jobs or housing, to get a candidate over the finish line? Or could it potentially stand on its own again in certain races? How crucial is that pairing?
That pairing, that seems like the formula everyone will be trying to replicate or maybe counter in the next cycle. Food for thought. Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We really hope you'll take a moment to look into the sources we've covered today. Until next time.